In part 3 of our video series on configuring forms-based authentication in SharePoint 2013, we're going to be going over making the web config edits necessary for FBA to work. Now, there are a lot of websites out there that provide information about editing the web config files for security token service and the content site in this case. The easiest one that I've found to use is actually the FBA Configuration Manager for SharePoint 2013. It's actually on a TechNet blog by Steve Peshka. I hope I'm saying that correctly. You can download it from here. You do have to install it to your farm, but it makes things a lot easier for making the web config edits. So let's go ahead and launch it. The first thing I'm going to do is give it the URL of our site. So in this case, it's just FBA. The zones, if you had multiple zones here, you would choose it. We only have the one, so we'll leave that as it is. And if I go into sample configurations, we can see he provides several examples in eDirectory, LDAP, OpenLDAP. We obviously chose SQL for this video series, so I'm going to choose the connection string first. And the first thing we have to do is name our connection string. In this case, we call it our database FBA, so I'm going to name the connection string the same thing just to kind of keep it nice and simple. Here we're actually looking for the SharePoint, or the SQL server name, excuse me. So in this case, it's just SharePoint 1. It's on the same box that we're currently on. And finally, the database itself. So again, we just named this FBA. The next section we'll do is the people picker wildcard. And what this does is actually allows you to do partial username matches with FBA users. So again, here what it's looking for is our membership provider name. Again, we name this the same thing, just FBA. So now let's go to the membership provider section. There it is. Okay, so here's the connection string name. It wants that again, so we have to keep it consistent. FBA is what we named it up here, so that's what we're going to call it down here. And then if you recall in part 1 of our video series, we actually named the membership provider FBA as well. Last section is SQL role. And again, it wants the connection string name, FBA, and the name of our role, or membership role. So in this case, we actually did FBA role. So there we go. Now, the important thing to kind of point out here is that you can definitely name your connection string something different. You can do FBA underscore SQL if you wanted to do that. You know, again, you could name this FBA members. This part FBA members, FBA role. But just to kind of keep it simple for the videos, I've kind of made everything FBA, and there's no harm in doing that either. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and apply config. And what this actually does is creates a timer job that's going to make these edits to both the security token service web config file and the content site. As you can see, it says update complete. Timer job has been created. And then you'll see the last sentence there. Also make sure you grant the application pool account for this web app rights to the membership database if using SQL. So we are, and this is actually what we did in one of the earlier videos where we granted the application pool identity full access to the database. So I'm going to click OK there. And then minimize this. We're going to give the timer job just a couple of minutes to run, and then we're going to go in and actually check to see if the edits have been made. Okay, so we've had enough time for the timer job to run. What I'm going to do is, I think the easiest way to probably get to the web config files is just to straight from IIS Manager. So I'm going to go to our site, FBA here, go to Explore. Here we see the web config file. So I'm going to open that up. In this case, it's going to open up in Visual Studio. Obviously, you can use Notepad or something similar if you want. So I'm just going to do a quick search for connection string. And as you can see, under the membership provider area, it has added our FBA connection string name and the name of our membership provider. Same thing for the role, FBA, FBA role. If I keep going down, I can see the connection string section. So FBA, then our SQL server name and the database. And the only other one we need to confirm is the people picker. So let's do a quick search for that. And the second one down, as you can see, it has added FBA as well. So the content site looks good. Now let's just go and verify the security token service web config file. So we expand SharePoint Web Services. Come in here to Security Token Service Application, Explore. We'll open this one up. In this case, it's usually all the way down at the bottom. So let's go scroll all the way down. Not that far. And here we go. So here's the connection string section. We have added FBA Here's a server name, the database name. Now I also have another FBA web application on here for our extranet collaboration manager product. But again, we want to emphasize just out of the box FBA with 2013 in this video series. As you can see, the membership providers have been added as well. FBA role. So those are the web config edits. It looks like they've been made. Looks like we're ready to go. So for the final video of this series, we're actually going to be importing some users from a spreadsheet into the SQL database. That's one of the limitations with out-of-the-box FBA is that there's no extremely easy way to add users. But we're going to cover some different options in part 4 of the video series. And in the description of this video, there's going to be a link to the configuration manager utility that we used, as well as just the web config edit sections that we made. So I've just cut those out from the larger web config file. I've pasted them into their own text file so you can look at those if you want to. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in part 4 and the final part of this video series on configuring forms-based authentication in SharePoint 2013.